right, well, thank you. So thank you so much for that nice warm welcome. It's my pleasure to be here. Just want to share a little bit about my background so you know who's in front of you. I started as the Executive Director of the Center for Student Success in August, so it's a relatively new role for me. Prior to that, I worked at Middlesex County College for 16 years. I started on the student services side of the house, where I worked as a counselor for students with disabilities as well as a generalist, working with all of our students for a variety of reasons. And then I shifted over to the academic side full-time in 2007, teaching psychology, and I became the coordinator of our Student Success Center, and also what served as the director of our Faculty Development Center. So a couple of things that you want to pick up from that is that I care about students, I care about faculty, and I get to do the best of both. When I get to work with folks like you, helping you be the best you can be, that obviously has a significant benefit to your students here at Ocean County College. So thank you so much for having me today. Today we're going to talk about the faculty role in Guided Pathways. So I want to begin by just telling you a little bit about the Center for Student Success. How many of you are familiar with the Center for Student Success? Okay, some of you. I'm going to be completely honest, first of all, it's pretty new. As a faculty member, I'm impressed because I didn't know a whole lot about it when I was, teaching full time, and you're just kind of doing your thing, and you hear some buzz, kind of what's happening around the campus, but you're not fully aware. And the only reason I became aware is I happened to know the previous executive director. And I said to her, "What are you doing? I see you buzzing around. What is this Center for Student Success? I don't really understand what it is." So fortunately, I have a much better picture of what it is now that I'm in that role, and I want to make sure that you understand what it is also. Our primary mission is really to support all of the 19 community colleges here in New Jersey with success initiatives. So it's pretty broad. You'll see that some of our guiding principles have to do with gathering folks from across the state at events like Lisa described before, and then also helping gather some of the data to guide our actions. So there's a lot of different principles that are behind it, but by and large, the whole entire center is really getting framed by Guided Pathways. So, Guided Pathways. How many of you, I'm going to ask you to either identify yourself as being like, I don't really know what Guided Pathways is, I know a little bit, I know a moderate, or I can get up there and talk about Guided Pathways. I'm kind of an expert on it. All right, so those are the four. I won't actually make you come up if you do that, but I do want to ask you just to kind of raise your hand for all those categories. So how many of you would say, we'll start at the top, or would say, I'm expert, I know this stuff and I know it really well? All right, how about moderate? Somewhat? Not at all. Oh, good, I wasn't alone. This validates me because when I was in the faculty role, again, I didn't really know much about Guided Pathways. I heard this buzz, and I'm like, what is this? There's always some other initiative kind of coming our way. What's this one? And what is it really trying to accomplish? Well, the more that I looked at it, and you read that seminal book and you start to hear some of the key speakers, it's really fascinating or disturbing, I'm not sure which one it is, it's one of those, I guess, but kind of shocking, I guess, that there are so many issues that as a faculty member I had some awareness of, but not enough. So my goal today is to help you understand how important the faculty really are. So I'm just thrilled to have this opportunity to directly work with you because so many of these things are happening at the administrative level, and the truth of the matter is that's not the way it's all going to work. We really need everyone to kind of get on board with these powerful interventions that we're going to employ. So let's talk a little bit about what Guided Pathways is. Well, let's start with the pathways part first. Pathways is really about creating clear paths, because I don't know if you know this or not, but I didn't know as a faculty member, students who do graduate, and we know there's not enough of them, but the students who do graduate are graduating with excess credits. Anybody want to take a guess at how many credits a typical associate degree earner would get? Not 60, I'll tell you that, which is what the typical requirement is. How many do you think it might be? 72? 68? 88? Yeah, it's in that 80 to 90 range. And those are the credits, not counting the developmental courses, so we're not even counting all of that. So that's one of the issues that folks were kind of like, wait a minute, this is problematic because obviously that's a huge debt for our students, a huge amount of time they're investing, and some of it is that they don't really know their path. So when you think of the word pathway, it's really about clearly articulating the curriculum for students. So in some cases, that's going to be identifying some core courses so that they're not all over the map, but that the courses that they take will transfer with them to the next institution, and they're best tied to your discipline. So we're going to talk in a minute about your role in that. But the other part of the pathway is what's happening in those classes and how can we really elevate the learning that is taking place. So that's the part I'm going to talk to you about also. And of course, faculty are at the heart, really, of that. There's no way that you can't be. In fact, at the national level, these are the 4 pillars, really, of the Guided Pathways movement. But you'll see at the national level that ensuring learning is actually all the way on the right. And I said, no, no, no. In New Jersey, we're not doing it that way. We're putting it over here with the pathway. You know, I love the teaching and learning piece. It's so essential to what we do. So in New Jersey, we've kind of stuck it in with the pathway piece because it's not just about defining their curriculum, but what kind of magic happens in the classroom while they're in that curriculum. So that's the pathway part. Now we have the guided part. Well, students need assistance getting into a major, a pathway. You know, they're oftentimes making decisions without much thoughts. You know, they're pressured because of financial aid. Many students are changing their major. You know, and that's one of the big reasons for the excess credits. You know, so we need to help our students really do that. And I'm really excited to know about the great work that's happening here at this college because I have had the pleasure of working with some of your first-year experience folks, and they have been doing incredible work. You know, Lisa was not lying when she said you guys kind of have a rock star thing going on right here. You know, I can spot it because I've been going around to all the different colleges. You folks are really doing that course right, and you're even elevating it further as you continue to really revamp curriculum. So figuring out ways, whether it's through courses like that, through advising, you know, through interactions with the faculty. We'll talk a little bit about what your role is at helping students get onto the path and also stay on the path. So once they choose a pathway to be on, how do we make sure that they stay on it? I'm sure your students are no different than my students. They have a lot going on. They often have many things that are impacting their ability to be successful. And again, you as a faculty member are really able to help steer them and get them right on the right track. So we're going to that's kind of the backdrop for the center. Now it's important for you to know that Guided Pathways is not an student affairs activity, it's not an academic affairs activity, it is an institutional activity. So in order for this to be successful, you'll hear me talk today about how powerful it is for collaborative work to be done and what that really does produce. So how many English faculty do we have in the room? Folks teaching English. Okay, great. I'm going to say out loud that it is not their job and their job only to teach English, right? Would you all agree? You know, you folks will agree, I'm sure, right? You need the rest of us to also teach some of that writing. That, you know, the writing across the curriculum, things of that nature. So the idea here is we want to do the same thing. Well, the same thing is going to be true in terms of career exploration and helping students pick a career. If we think that a couple of advisors or a couple of career counselors are going to do that job, and they do a fantastic job. I know some of the folks you got here. You got great people here. They're doing a phenomenal job, but there's only so many of them. So even though we have fabulous English folks here, they can't take all of that on. Same thing for career. So we'll talk a little bit about how you can get engaged in that process as well. Now, I do want you to know that this Center for Student Success is not a New Jersey thing only. We are actually one of 13 states who are currently in this network of success centers. And you should be very proud to know that New Jersey was one of the first 3 to get funding from the Kresge Foundation, and we started formally 2 years ago. So we're in our 3rd year of the center right now. So I have the pleasure of having Jobs for the Future, which is this national organization. They serve as our network, so it's kind of the center for the centers, and they do incredible work. Just had a call with my leads today. Really helpful at helping me figure out how I can best serve all the 19 community colleges. So it's important for you to have a context that this isn't something that's just happening in New Jersey. We're part of this really national conversation that's all focused on student success and are really excited about that. Okay, so let's talk now that you have the backdrop for Guided Pathways, now I want to dive into how important you really are. So the research is clear, faculty matter. Think about an institution. Where is the heart of the institution? It's the faculty, right? You folks are the ones who are with your students all the time. Many of our other wonderful support systems may not get to interact with the majority of our student body. But you folks are guaranteed to be working with our student body. You really matter. The research is so clear that the power of a professor-student relationship, the power of the learning, all of that makes a humongous difference, really, in the lives of the students that you serve. So the most important message that I want you to walk away with today is that you are so significant in your students' lives. It's really, really important for you to know that. Okay, so let's talk about the first part. Remember, we started with the pathways piece, and I mentioned to you that we want to have clear curriculum. So what does that mean? Well, that means that you folks, as the experts in your discipline, we need your expertise. You can't just have someone who doesn't know your area create a map or a curriculum plan for your students. That, I guess, could happen, but it's not the way it should happen. You would really want to make sure that you're adding your expertise. So with the guided pathways, what many folks are doing is they're taking a good hard look at their curriculum. And let's be honest, we don't do this all the time, right? We're so busy, let's just go teach these courses and these courses. If you're in an accrediting institution, then that might happen a little bit more regularly. But many times, it really is something that we don't get to do. So it's a really awesome opportunity for us to stop, reflect, are these the courses that they really need in this curriculum? And then when there's a social science elective, a humanities elective, how many options are we giving them? Students often get stifled by the huge, vast amount of choices that they have. And while choice is good, sometimes it's too much choice. What a lot of the national figures in this space are calling it is the cafeteria style, of deciding. So, when you go to a cafeteria and the menu's overwhelmed, or in New Jersey, we got the diners, with those big old, menus. And as you look at those menus, sometimes you can't decide what you're going to have for lunch. Well, our students are in that position when they have a list of 100 options to take as your social science elective. So in one regard, we think we're doing them a favor by giving them lots of opportunities and choices, but in some ways, what we're doing is we're bogging down the advising system because we're having the conversations focus on, should I take psych or should I take soc? These are, I'm a psychologist. I care a little bit about this particular example, but the idea here is that we want to move those conversations from those smaller decisions to the bigger decisions. Like, let's talk about careers and where is this going to get you? Where are you headed? So this is one of the areas where you can come in with your expertise to help a lot of the folks that are working on, helping students enter the right path by giving them maps that make sense. So using your expertise to decide, well, maybe, these two social science electives are best if you're a biology major. If you happen to be this major, maybe these are. These are the things we're telling students all the time, because when they come to you and you're helping them choose a class, you're not going through all 100 options with them. You're saying, well, why don't you pick between this one or this one or this one? They seem to transfer well. They also are good in terms of what you need. So you're saying this already. We all do it. But why don't we just put that on paper then? And it doesn't mean we have to box them in, but they could be recommended courses to kind of guide them a little bit with that. So identifying those career pathways and what they look like is really essential. But I want to shift our attention to that second pillar. Remember the learning part and making sure that we're creating meaningful experiences. So when you think about creating meaningful experiences for your students and really making sure that we have significant learning happening, it's really important for you to focus on the relationships that you have not only in the classroom, but also outside of the classroom. I want you to do a quick turn and talk, and I want you to turn to a neighbor, and I want you to think about a faculty member who played an important role in your life. Just going to give you about 2 minutes, so just do a quick turn and talk. Who's a faculty member who really mattered for you? Thank you. So we're going to talk about those powerful relationships, but my guess is that you were all able to think of a faculty member that had a pretty powerful role in your life. So we're going to talk about the power of relationships and why they matter so much. We're also going to talk about how we can design some meaningful learning experiences. Obviously, we can't do a deep dive into that, but we will be offering other workshops and events that are related to course design, so I'll talk to you about those before you leave. And then we're gonna end with, for this module part, a challenge and support kind of mantra, really making sure we talk about how important it is that we challenge our students and support them, making sure we have high academic standards. So you folks can just take a minute to read this slide. It's a quote from Ceci, so I'll just give you a second to read it. So when I think about, you think about how do you help increase student success, it happens through relationships, right? You can have whatever program you want, you can have whatever curriculum you want, you can have all these other things, and they matter a lot, but what really matters are the people that they're interacting with. So that is so critical. Now, what I want to do is I want to talk to you about how can you start to build a relationship with students before they even step on campus. So before day one, these are things that you can think about doing over the summer prior to your fall semester, or if you're teaching a summer class coming up. What can we do as faculty to engage our students and start to build a relationship with them? I love this research by Legge and Wilson because it's a very simple, practical strategy that has a pretty powerful finding. So let me just walk you through this study. Basically, they had college students who were they were randomly assigned, so it was an experimental design, to either receive an email 1 week prior to the start of the semester or not receive an email 1 week prior to the start of the semester. Now, this was done in a place that has the luxury of TAs. We don't have that, I get that. We don't have that luxury. But because they did, the professor was actually blind to knowing who was in which group. So that's kind of an important part of this study. So what they did was the course went on as usual, but they assessed the students at the beginning and at the end. And when you look at the results, it's really not shocking. If you put your attention over on the right-hand side, you'll see that the students who received the email had a much more positive first impression of the course. But the part that is so just intriguing and fascinating to me is at the end of the semester, the last week of the semester, that held pretty true. Look at how significant that was. We're talking about one small action of an email that has a welcoming message. So I think sometimes we forget. You're doing your teaching thing all day long, and you forget the power that you have. Small little actions can have really big consequences. So pretty powerful stuff. Did you know a lot of research predicts success based on the first week? I think probably you know that, right? A lot of you are familiar with that. So I want to really challenge you to think about, well, what do you do on the first day of class, first week of class? And if we know relationships really matter, how can we really put that into practice to make sure that we are facilitating a great relationship? What if, instead of fumbling with our technology and making sure everything was up and running, we were at the front of the door welcoming students, shaking their hand as they walk in, saying, hello, what's your name? I mean, very small things like that can have such a powerful impact on students. I don't know about you, but when I go to a conference, oftentimes people don't have a chance to do this, and I'm guilty also, because you have 10 minutes in between classes, 10 minutes in between presentations. You do got to go fumble with your technology and get it all set up eventually. But I had this one presentation that I went to, and the presenter was at the door greeting everyone, and it makes a really big difference. So think about how you can think about the actions that you take that very first week and how you can try to build that relationship, because the relationship is really what matters the most, especially at the onset of the semester. So this was an interesting study done by Wilson and Wilson. They wanted to look at how much that first day mattered and whether tone and friendliness mattered. So they compared, now this is something I wouldn't recommend because actually the professor didn't show up on the first day of class, so you can't do that. I think that's against the rules. But she had, gotten approval for this, and because she wasn't there, the TA came in and showed a video of the professor. And depending on what section you were in, you got to see either the friendly video or the not so friendly video. Now, the not so friendly video was just monotone. It wasn't mean or evil. It wasn't anything terrible. It just was kind of more neutral versus being a little bit more, friendly and, engaging. And as you could probably guess, the reason I'm sharing this study with you is, again, at the end of the semester, everything else was the same except for that video, that first day experience. The end of the semester, we are having significantly higher levels of motivation and higher levels of achievement. So this is really, and these are just a couple of studies. This is not an isolated finding, but I'm not sharing all of them with you for the sake of time. Powerful stuff here about how small actions, especially at the start of a semester, really can make a difference. Now, the other thing is outside of class activities matter. So at a commuter school, like a community college, I'm sure your students are very much like mine. They go to class, they get out of class, and where do they go? Home, right? Or work, but they get back in the car. Some of them go to the library, some of them go to the student center, but the majority of our students are class car, and wherever they need to go in terms of their car experience. But we know that when students are engaged, that really increases the academic achievement and their overall being and really their entire college experience, right? I mean, college, now I talked to you about those maps before and what classes. I care about my students and what they're taking in their classes too. But honestly, a lot of the really valuable learning happens outside of class through the internships, the service learning opportunities, the clubs, all of those other other activities really matter. And guess what? You folks are the ones that are going to be able to convince them to do it because you have something called grades. That's quite a carrot, those grades, right? You can actually, force some of this. And, let's be honest. Sometimes we need an incentive, right? We need a reason. And it's not because we don't want to. It's just that we prioritize things based on what matters most. And if the grade matters and there's some kind of connection to that, you can definitely do that. I remember going this was in my graduate classes where we had to go and we had to visit some very, very different kinds of places that were completely out of my comfort zone. I would have never been in those places if I wasn't required to be there by my faculty member and to write this whole reflection exercise as it was linked to the curriculum, et cetera. And what an amazing experience I had at so many of those different events. I wouldn't have done it without the faculty motivator behind it. And I know our students won't either. So we don't want to tax them because we know they're going to work and they have family obligations. And so I'm not suggesting that we load it on, but I am suggesting that we strategically think about how we can structure our classes to guarantee more of this outside of class stuff happening to increase their success. That's networking, that's connections that they're making, right? Those are really powerful paths to really their career and developing all the soft skills that they need to be able to function well in their career. So very, very important stuff also. All right, it's reflection time. You get to turn to a neighbor and discuss this question. You have about 2 minutes only, and then we'll move on to the next pillar. This is the hardest part of my job, is stopping great conversations. I hate it, but in order to get through the rest of it, I have to pull you back. So thank you so much for bringing your attention back here. I want to now shift gears a little bit. We've been talking a lot about the power of relationships. And although relationships matter a lot, they're not the only factor that matter. We want to make sure that we have high academic expectations. I mean, you can be a wonderful, friendly person, but if you're not helping them learn the content, that's not doing a whole lot except for being a nice, friendly person. So the relationship part is really important. But I know that that's not all there is. We definitely have to also look at the academic expectations and why they matter so much and what we do about it. So before students start college, we actually have done a pretty good job at communicating to students that college is going to be more challenging than high school. The message is out. They've got it. They've heard it. Okay, so that part we know. Now here is the question I want you to do a quick prediction. And you can turn to a neighbor if you want to, but you're only going to get 30 seconds to a minute for this one. So if they're walking in expecting it to be challenging, how many of the students are reporting that the first year is meeting their expectations? And I will tell you that this is not just for community college. The study was done for your students. All right, folks, I'm going to stop your conversations if you're having them, and I'm going to do a quick timeout for process. How many of you would like to know the answer to this question? Is anybody interested? All right. How many of you would like your students to care what you're going to say next? Come on, you want them to care, right? Well, prediction is a great strategy you can use in your class to kind of get them perked up, because the reason you want to know right now is you want to know whether you were right. Everyone likes to be right? So one of the things I use a lot in my classroom is this prediction. I could have skipped this slide, and I could go to the next slide that does have the answer. I will share it with you. You don't have to worry. You're going to get to see it in a moment. But you would take it in, and it would be okay, but you're going to be more cognitively engaged when you have an investment in what comes next. And prediction gives you that. Now, I will caution you, you don't want to let them go on too long. That's why I said to you, you only have 30 seconds to a minute, because if you let them predict and they're going down the wrong path, we don't want to cement the wrong content in there. So you have to be very cautious about that. But it works really well. So prediction's a great strategy. So let's go ahead and we'll take a look, and then you can decide if you're right or not. Oh, come on. Oh, I didn't want to go. There we go. See, I always get somebody who's like, woohoo, I got it. Somebody was right. So the findings here, usually you always get somebody celebrating that they're right, but in this case, being right is kind of bad because it's bad news. I mean, it's good for you, that you got it right and you know what's going on, but really, this is bad information, folks. I mean, it's terrible that our students are coming in, they're high school teachers, their friends, their parents, everybody said college is going to be a lot of work. They've even gotten the message, every hour in class, you have to study how many hours outside of class? Oh, you folks are firm. Usually it's 2 to 3, but you're going with 3. Go for it. I like the way you talk. You can go into any academic environment and ask that question, and people can spit out the answer. 2 to 3 hours for every hour you're in class. And yet, you know what the reality is? That is not happening. We are not requiring enough from our students. I got an applause. We need to step up our game, folks. We have to step up our game. So I want you to have that relationship with your students, but I also want you to do this. I want you to raise the bar. I want you to challenge your students. And remember, this data was not community college-based. This was, college-based. So it was inclusive of the 4-year schools, which means that this is not, our problem. This is a national problem, really. So we're going to talk a little bit about the importance of this and why that challenge and support model is so valuable. Well, the good news, folks, because it's getting a little depressing for me if we keep talking about all this bad news, is that if you expect your students to do more, they do. Now, not always. I know that. I get that. But they often will. So if you expect, when you have a higher bar, they will achieve at a higher level. Okay? Really important for you to know. They do rise to the occasion. Now, when you think about course design, many of us, and I am sure that there are some of you that are guilty. I know I have been guilty of this myself as a faculty member. I have addressed the course in what's kind of called the coverage-based design method. When I first started teaching, so I started, at Middlesex in 2000. I was in the counseling area. I had no idea that I was going to be a professor. It was not a goal of mine. I was a counseling psychologist. I was doing counseling, and I'm happy doing my thing. I'm helping students one-on-one, and I loved it. But I'm in a college environment now, and they asked me to teach the student success course, so I started to do that. And then someone said to me, you should really go teach psychology. So I'm like, all right. So what do you do to an adjunct? Because I was an adjunct at the time, but I get a book and, a sample syllabus, right? Good luck. I didn't know what I was doing. I'm like, okay. I go back and I think about what I did in my classes, and I shouldn't say this out loud, especially since it's getting videotaped, but I think they deserve a refund. My students, they really, it was not good. And it's not that I wasn't trying. I just didn't know what to do. And I did what's called the coverage-based approach. I looked at the textbook. I looked at the sample syllabus, and I'm like, all right, week 1, chapter 1. Week 2, chapter 2. This is not the way we're supposed to do business, folks. I mean, it took me a little while, and as I became the director of the Faculty Development Center, oh my, there's a whole field. It's a whole pedagogical field out there on how to teach well, the scholarship of teaching and learning. I was so busy making sure I knew the psychology content, I wasn't focused on the how to teach it and the delivery part of it. So the idea here is we want to use what's called the backwards design model. Wiggins and Mattei are kind of the key players in this space. And you want to start with the learning outcomes. And what are you trying to achieve? And then how can you best achieve that? So you start with the outcomes, and then you go to evidence. What evidence would show me that they can do what I wanted them to do? Instead of having a paper, a presentation, and quizzes and tests and like the normal things that we would offer, you still might do those things, but the idea is you want to craft and design your course in a way that meets the learning outcomes. So it's not necessarily the case that you need to have a paper, a presentation, and all those traditional things. Maybe exams aren't even the best assessment tool for your learning outcomes. If you're looking for higher level blooms, kind of climbing up that cognitive ladder. So the idea here is that we want to really think about how do we design our courses. We want to shift away from week 1 is chapter 1, week 2 is chapter 2, and we want to be much more kind of thoughtful in how we do this. So I don't have time today to go deep into course design, but we will be hosting a course design institute in June. So stay tuned and be on the alert for that information if you're interested in doing a deeper dive there. Now, when you talk about critical thinking, I have created this kind of process of critical thinking. One of the first things is that students need to have a content knowledge. Because guess what? I can be a really good critical thinker in psychology. Take me out of psychology, go throw me into a discipline area that I am not really aware of, like put me in physics. How could I possibly be a good critical thinker in physics? I don't know. I know how the process works, but I don't know enough content. So one of our primary responsibilities, as you know, is to deliver the content to our students, but delivering it doesn't mean they received it. So we have to do it in a way that they definitely are learning it. And we do that through our lectures, our lessons, our active learning, our readings, our assignments, all that kind of stuff. But in addition to that, critical thinking is not just a cognitive task. It sounds like it is, but you need to believe that you can do it. So self-efficacy really plays a really important role, I think, in critical thinking, because if you don't think you can, you're not going to probably exert the right amount of effort in order to get there. And also, you need to care and commit. You have to have some motivation. So maybe I think, you know what, I think I can do this math class, but maybe I don't want to. I don't think it's relevant to my goals. Well, we got to increase the relevancy. We have to make that explicit to our students. They don't always see it. You obviously do, or you wouldn't be hanging out with them all semester, right? You obviously know that math is valuable and whatever other discipline you're teaching matters, but we might need to show them, especially in the gen ed classes, when they don't always see that direct connection. Why do I need this class if I'm majoring and I'm interested in going into this career path? Well, there's a lot of really valid reasons why, and we just need to make sure we're sharing those. Then after we have that foundational piece done, we're going to move up the ladder and we're going to do this challenge and support theme. And as you give them challenging tasks, we need to also support them in those tasks. So let me ask you a quick question. How many of you ask your students to read something for you? I hope so. I better see some hands up, otherwise it's kind of scary. All right. How many of you have a little bit of a problem when sometimes the students aren't actually doing all that? Thank you for fessing up. I know I did too. So I'm going to tell you, this is confession time, something that I did that I am embarrassed of. When my students, I would put on the syllabus, read chapter 5. Then I expected them to come to class and we were going to have this really great dynamite conversation and discussion about chapter 5. I couldn't wait. I was all ready for it. And guess what? Were they ready for it? No. So now what? What am I supposed to do? Well, this is what I did, and I shouldn't have done, but this is what I did. I said, open up, here comes chapter 5, and I just gave it to them on a silver spoon, right? I started to lecture to the chapter, making it even less necessary for them to read. Well, heck, that worked for me, right? I don't have to read next week. She's just going to tell us. Why should I sit there at home struggling to read this chapter if she's going to just give me what I need? So we can't give them what they need, everything that they need in the class. That's not productive. But one of the major reasons that students are not reading, what do you think the reasons are for them not reading? So there's a lot of reasons, right? There could be time, the time pressures. It could be that it's challenging. I don't know about you, but I have certainly read my fair of chapters and left saying, I got nothing out of that. Have you had that experience too? I hope I'm not the only one, please. Good, thank you. So I think some of it has to do with our students not really comprehending the text sometimes. So here are some very simple things that you can do as a faculty member to do this support. So it's a challenge and support. I can't stop asking them to read. In fact, I started asking them to read more. I will tell you, my students, I went from maybe 2 or 3 reading to maybe 2 or 3, and not even always not reading. They're all reading for me. Why? I hold them accountable for it, and I support them. Those are the 2 tricks. If you hold them accountable and you support them. I gave them guided reading questions. They had reading homework. They had to hand that in. They had to do something with it in class. But I also supported them. I gave them a preview lecture right at the end of class before they had to go. So like the 5-minute version, like think about it like a quick YouTube video before they go and read that chapter. I gave them strategies, like go and read the summary first. It's going to build at least a little bit of background knowledge, because background knowledge is one of the best predictors whether or not students are going to get something out of reading the text. So we want to build that knowledge for them, get that foundation base really high. Okay, so if we have high expectations and high support, we are going to end up with more successful outcomes. So we're going to do this challenge and support. Lots of different supports that we can provide. So many, I'll just give you a minute to go ahead and read the slide. So we don't have time today to talk about all of these supports, but I do want to talk about one, feedback for a minute. And how many of you are familiar with Mueller and Dweck studies? Anybody familiar? Okay, a couple of you are. Those of you who are not, well, those of you who are, don't you give the answers away, okay? I'm just going to go through this for a minute. You'll have another prediction opportunity in a second. So here's how this study was set up. This is a very classic seminal piece of work here that is talked about everywhere. So you want to make sure you know about Mueller and Dweck's work. What they did, it was done in an elementary school setting. They gave students a puzzle that was of moderate difficulty. So the first task, I should stand on this side. The first task was that everyone had a puzzle that was doable but challenging, okay? It was designed to create a successful experience. And guess what? Everyone pretty much had a successful experience. So that was successful. Now, based on what group you were assigned to, and this was an experimental study, so it was random assignment, you got different types of feedback. So you folks over here, you were told, wow, you did really well. You must be really smart, okay? You folks over here, you were told, wow, you did really well. You must have worked really hard, okay? And over here, by group C, you were told, wow, you did really well, period, because we need a control group, right? So you have to figure it out yourself why you did well. So in psychology, you have to have the control group, right? So I want you to just, in your mind, think for a minute about which group do you think did the best. At the end, so I pause for a moment. I forgot to tell you an important part. So after this feedback came, they were then all given a puzzle that was very challenging. It was designed to be a failure experience, okay? So everyone had a failure experience. Then after that failure experience, they had a puzzle that matched the first puzzle. It wasn't exactly the same, but same difficulty level. So my question to you when I ask who did the best, comparing that first moderate to the second moderate, okay? So do a quick prediction in your minds. You can do this one independently. You can share with a neighbor if you want.
Everyone failed the difficult one?
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. Yes, pretty much.
That's the idea.
Yep, pretty much. Alrighty, folks. So I'm actually not going to ask you to share your predictions, but you can see if you're right in just a moment. So the effort group is the one that did the best. You folks did fabulous because you were working hard. So let's think about that for a minute. What were they thinking to themselves after they failed? I guess I didn't work hard enough. What were you folks thinking after that task? I guess I'm not smart enough. Now, smartness is a variable that most people think is not changeable. So if I'm not really that smart, are you going to put much effort into the task at the end? Probably not, right? Now, there's been some good research recently that shows that intelligence is more malleable than we used to think it was, but people are not onto that research yet. So they often still think that it's not. So we have to help them kind of shift their thinking. So my control group over here, you guys did a little bit better. You've been doing puzzles all day, for crying out loud. I'm sorry, but it's not refrigerator like worthy. You know, the difference wasn't significant. But the part over here, this group didn't even just not do as well, they did worse, right? They did worse. Now, this is so powerful because how students interpret their mistakes matters. And guess what? You as faculty get to help them decide how to do that. So not only was it not as well performance on the puzzle, but also the students in the ability group didn't really even want to do the task, so their motivation was down. They didn't enjoy the task as much. Really problematic. So this is so critical that we help our students change their mindset to be what's called a growth mindset. So a growth mindset means I can get better at this. I can be smarter. I can work harder. Any of those things, as long as they think that they can change it. So we want to help our students attribute their mistakes and failures to internal changeable factors. It's not that you made the test too hard or too easy. It's that they didn't put enough time in or didn't use the right strategies. Many times they are putting the time in. I have to tell you, they're just not using the right strategies. They're using the weakest strategies. Reviewing, funny story. Well, oh gosh. Well, I don't think my son will watch this, so I can just say this. So my son was studying for a test the other day. Well, I walked past him, and he's sitting at the kitchen table, and he's got his notebook in front of him. I said to him, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm studying." I said, "No, you're not." I said, "Yes, I am." I said, "Absolutely not. You're not studying." I said, "You're looking." you're looking at your notebook and you're looking at it again and you're looking at it again. This is called rehearsal, right? And that is not studying. Like, that doesn't take much brain power. It's not very active, and it's not going to, all it's going to do is make it look more familiar. Familiarity is not the same thing as learning. So, you know, buddy, you got to get it right. Like, that's not the studying. Now, if you test yourself on it, you cover it up and you see, can I, do that? You create flashcards, you create quizzes. Now you know whether you got it or not. So we have to give the right messages to our students. When they don't perform well, we need to have a conversation. Okay, I studied for 5 hours and I should have done better. Yes, you should have. So let's talk about, what did you do during those 5 hours? Were there distractions, that were multitasking and getting you pulled away? Were you doing the look at it method? Because that's not going to work. Or were you doing the test it method? So now my son has he's caught on to this. So I come home and I said, did you study? He says, yes, I did. I said, what did you do? He says, I put it down in my notebook. I covered it up. I quizzed myself to see if I understood it. Now, I'm not sure he's always doing that, but at least he knows what he's supposed to be doing. We're making progress. So step by step in the right direction. So the importance of this, I can't overstate, is really helping our students attribute their mistakes and failures, and their successes, by the way, to internal changeable factors. Now, what I love about Carol Dweck is she has this 1 3-letter word that is just phenomenal. How many of you have had a student who said, I can't do fill in the blank, math, whatever it is, art, right? You've all had these students. I can't do. When they say that, here's what you say. Yet. She's got a great, it's like a 1-minute clip on YouTube if you want to Google it up. The power of yet. Think about what that word signifies. It gives hope. You can't do that yet. I'll give it to you. I'll let you say that. If you just say I can't do it, period, that's not going to work. That's not going to fly in my zone. All right? So we're going to step it up. How can we then make it possible for you to do this? Here's what people do that are successful at it. Let's engage in these behaviors and activities. Okay? So really, really powerful stuff. I'll give you a moment to digest and reflect on what we just talked about. So you have another quick turn and talk opportunity. So far, I hope I've given you a lot to think about how important your role really is in terms of determining what the path should look like and how learning happens and the magic of learning really on that path and how critical you are. Now we're going to shift to the guided part, which I'm sure you're probably thinking to yourself, that sounds more student service side of the house, and I'm going to talk to you about how important and critical it is for you as a faculty member to also be a part of this. So when we talk about helping students enter a path, how many of you were influenced by a teacher or a professor at any point to go into a career path? It doesn't have to be even the one that you're in right now. Show of hands. Most of us are really influenced by faculty. So maybe you took this really, this class that just wowed you. The professor cared so much about it that you just couldn't help but get excited yourself, right? That's a lot of how our career decisions are made, are based on an interaction with a teacher in the classroom. That's where it stems from. Most people are not going to take a career assessment inventory and figuring out what career to enter. It can be a good, useful tool to help students explore options, but it doesn't, that act itself doesn't really usually result in a career choice being made. So let's talk a little bit about where are students getting their career information from. Well, not surprisingly, it's an informal process. Now, I wore the career counselor hat for many years, and I did career counseling with students. But it was a very small percentage of students, and even the students who did it, guess what? Many of them didn't come back for multiple sessions. Average 1 or 2 sessions for career counseling. And I think it's because it's overwhelming and it's hard. So if you really want to explore careers, it takes time. And that's where I think the FYE class and some other things can come into play, because we can require, that magic grade element all of a sudden puts it up high on the priority list. There's something called the serial effect. We do things that are due the next day and the day after and the day after. So if I have a paper, a presentation, a reading, I have all these things, and then I'm also, by the way, at some point supposed to figure out what I'm doing with the rest of my life and what my career path's going to be, well, it's going to fall to the bottom, even though it obviously is the more important question. I mean, how someone does on one exam is like this big versus what career path are you going to choose? Yet they don't invest the time in it, students. So students are much more likely to get that either informally from friends or and also from faculty, who are teaching them. Here's actually a graphic that shows and illustrates the kind of the breakdown. So parents and friends are the biggest influencers, but teachers are playing a role here as well. So lots of different folks are going to influence a decision, and many times it's not going to be a very formal, I'm going to look at the pros and cons of this. I mean, it doesn't go usually down that way. It's usually more haphazard. I know for me, first of all, this position I'm in right now, I didn't even know existed like, a year ago. I never saw myself as a faculty member. I never saw myself as an author. I mean, these are things that I did not, a faculty development director, I didn't even know what that was. Those are things that weren't even in my spectrum. So one of the areas that faculty play a really important role is even widening the lens. I want you to think about the students who walk into your door. When they start out, when they're 5, one of the first things we start asking them is, what do you want to be when you grow up, right? Krumboltz, he's a famous career psychologist, talks about how evil that question really is. He says that's a terrible question to be asking a 5-year-old because we know what the answers are going to be. Policeman, fireman, doctor, teacher, nurse, something they see. That's all they know. That's the only options they have. So they name them, they rattle them off. So they're going to say those options. And then they don't really get much more exposure because many of them are still with the same friend group in the same community, so they know what their friends' parents do for a living. They know what their neighbors do for a living, maybe whoever goes to their church or any other organization they're a part of. They get to know those careers, but that's it. So their lens has gone from this to this by 18. We need it to get wider. We need them to see the possibilities. And that's where you can come in and share about the various careers that are in your field for them to think about. We can play a really critical role as faculty members in helping students with their career decision making. We also play a very powerful role in the self-efficacy. I spoke before about the importance of self-efficacy. For many of our students, they look down the road and they grab careers that are here. They grab onto ideas here because this is what their network has available. We want them to grab higher. We want them to reach further. And they can't do that without mentors even exposing them. And then they have to believe that that's possible. And hearing stories about other folks that are like them, that have done this and have accomplished this, that can be so inspiring. And you know those folks. They were your past students. They're your colleagues now. Those are some of the most powerful stories. When you're sharing, hey, I didn't have all this worked out. I didn't know about this. This is how I navigated it. What we're doing in college is opening and really increasing those opportunities for folks. So being a mentor is so critical. When you think about your responsibilities as a faculty member, absolutely your curriculum matters, and you have to make sure that you're getting the learning happening there. But oh, so much more is really needed by our students. And they cannot get all of that from a career counselor and advisor. There's not enough of those people on campus. There's more faculty than any other group on campus. You folks have the power to make that happen by establishing these mentoring relationships with students and really helping them see their potential and see their options. So I hope that you're going to engage with your students. Students who have outside of class experiences with faculty are so much more likely to achieve at higher levels. So very, very powerful stuff. Now the career conversations that are going on seem to have, we do this conversation more with some groups than others. So as a university, as a college, you have to think about what is it that we need to do. So here you can see our full-time students are getting more attention than our part-time students. They're not having as many career conversations. So what are we doing to reach that population? This graph talks about the Dev Ed students. Actually, we are doing more with the Dev Ed than the non-Dev Ed. So I mean, we are just not having these dialogues. Students aren't reporting having these conversations, no matter who it's with, faculty, career counselor, et cetera. The idea here is we have to do more. We have to really help our students see what the options are and how important the out-of-class experiences are. Those networking opportunities that come through being in a club and working with the advisor of that club. What a different relationships you have with a student, right, than just in the classroom. By doing an internship, a service learning project, things of that nature really, really matter. The last and the final step is really to make sure students stay on the path. So once we help them figure out and navigate what a good path might be for them, and again, I say that's an institutional job, not a career counselor's job. That's everybody's job, is to assist in any way. The next thing we need to do is we need to identify when students get off track. And how can we then get them back onto track in a pretty, efficient manner? Well, the idea here is, you know your students better than anyone else. I don't care what kind of technology you buy, you're going to know before the technology flags it, right? So you could have awesome technology that flags when students are off track, send notifications when mid-semester reports or earlier alerts or whatever come out, but you know this day if a student's off track. Maybe they look a mess, and they're not usually that way, and they have some kind of emotional thing going on. Maybe they stopped showing up, or they're not handing in their homework, or they're not engaged in some way. You know before anyone else knows. So our best chance at helping students stay on the path is for our faculty to really do something and take action when they see a student's not on track. It can be incredibly powerful to just go up to a student and say, hey, you didn't hand that assignment in. That's kind of not like you. Is everything okay? And if everything's not okay, it is not your job to be the counselor. You get them over to the right person who has the credentials to do that. But they're not going to often go to that counselor, maybe without you walking them there or making a personal phone call for them, because they don't know. This is like a mysterious counselor. Who is this person? We trust people we know, and that's why sometimes they want to spill more on you as a faculty member than they do over in the counseling office, because they don't know them yet. So the idea is that you can identify when a student's off track, and you have the power to really intervene before anyone else can. You also have the power to give them those second chance opportunities. So I'm going to say to you, I've been doing a lot of reading and thinking about grading, and I'm going to challenge you with a couple of grading ideas. Does the grade at the end of the semester really reflect whether or not they learned the learning outcomes? If the answer is no, you got to do something different. What is it? And why is it that we don't give our students second chances? So one interesting article I read by Taras, he said that we have an equity problem in the world. And I was like, well, welcome to, of course we have an equity problem. We have a whole lot of equity problems in the world. But actually the equity problem that he talked about was not one that I had thought about. He said we treat undergraduates unfairly, all of them. He says we don't give them enough opportunities to learn from feedback. In an undergraduate environment, it's often a one and done, and that's it. A one and done. You get one chance at a test and that's it. You get one chance at a presentation, that's it. You get one chance at a paper, that's it. Now, I know why that is, because my God, there's so many of them. Can you imagine grading that whole stack of papers again the next week? I'm just like, when I get out of the buried stack, I'm just like, thank God that's over. But I'm not saying that you have to do that. But we have to figure out if they get a bad grade on one big assignment, it's over for them. And it's not just over necessarily in your class. They could just turn off also, right? Maybe I'm not cut out for college. So giving them some second chances. Thinking about setting up your class in a way that gives them feedback throughout. So I usually do a paper and a presentation. I link the two together so that they're getting their paper back before the presentation. I'm not redoing the paper because I cannot just do that, but I've given them check-in points to make sure they're on the right track, and then I'm giving them the heavy-duty feedback on the paper that they then apply before they meet with their group in the presentation. I also do a lot of verbal feedback in class. If you can break them up into groups and you just give them a little verbal feedback, sometimes 30 seconds is all it takes to get them right on the right track before they spent 4 hours doing the wrong thing. And then they're really frustrated when they discover they're not doing what you wanted them to. The other thing we want to do is we want to build resilience, which is basically resilient. The folks who are resilient have a strong support system. So we talked about power of relationships, and they also are more optimistic. They have that positive mindset. So we want to encourage that with words like yet, right? With language matters. We can definitely encourage our students to play an integral role in that. So we're going to give you a quick reflection, and then we're going to wrap up right after this one. You only have 1 minute for this because we're very tight on time. So a quick 30-second to 1 minute reflection with your neighbor, and then we'll wrap up. Okay, folks, I'm sorry this one has to be shorter, but I don't like to. I like to be on schedule and make sure we end on time. So I do need to pull us back together. So I want to end with a quote. This is another quote about relationships matter. I'm just going to read it to make sure that we kind of highlight the importance. Most continuing students indicate that at some point they consider dropping out. And the reasons for staying in school are revealing. They almost always include the name of a particular person, an instructor, a staff member, another student who gave the encouragement, guidance, or support needed to keep going. You can be that person for your students. I encourage you to be that person. Sometimes by giving them one opportunity to redo something, you have changed their life in a significant way. They are not going to drop out because of it. Whatever it might be, there are so many things that you can do. So I want to thank you for your time. I certainly will stick around for questions, but I know some of you have class. Thank you.